Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are watching from. Welcome to Favorite News. Tonight, we take a closer look at the worsening security crisis in Nigeria, where communities continue to face deadly attacks from armed bandits and terrorist groups. Over the past weeks, several regions of the country have seen a surge in violence, including village raids, mass kidnappings, and attacks on military bases. Authorities say the main groups responsible include armed bandit gangs operating in the northwest and extremist organizations such as Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province, often referred to as ISWAP, operating mainly in the northeast. In tonight's report, we examine the most recent attacks, where they happened, and what the government is doing to respond. Let's begin in northwestern Nigeria, where armed bandits continue to terrorize rural communities. In recent days, attacks were reported in Katsina State and Zamfara State. According to local authorities, gunmen stormed several villages late at night, firing weapons and forcing residents to flee their homes. At least 14 people were killed in one attack on communities in the Dandum and Musawa areas of Katsina State. Witnesses say dozens of armed men arrived on motorcycles, a common tactic used by bandit groups. Residents described scenes of panic as villagers ran into nearby forests to escape the gunfire. Security forces later launched an operation in the region and reported killing dozens of suspected bandits during a gun battle. Despite these efforts, many communities remain vulnerable due to the remote location of villages and limited security presence. Another deadly attack took place in the north-central region of Nigeria. In Plateau State, bandits ambushed a convoy of security personnel and local vigilantes. Reports indicate that around 20 members of the patrol team were killed during the confrontation. Local officials say the attackers appeared to be heavily armed and operating in large numbers. Such ambushes highlight the increasing boldness of armed groups, who are now targeting not only civilians but also security forces. Meanwhile, the northeastern part of the country continues to face threats from extremist groups. In recent weeks, militants linked to Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province carried out coordinated attacks on military bases in Borno State. According to military sources, dozens of soldiers were killed when militants launched raids on several bases in the region. The attackers reportedly used heavy weapons and vehicles during the assault. Security analysts say the raids demonstrate that insurgent groups remain capable of carrying out complex military operations despite years of counter-terrorism campaigns. The attackers also reportedly seized weapons, vehicles, and supplies from the bases before retreating into remote areas. Kidnapping remains one of the most common tactics used by both terrorists and bandits. In another recent incident, militants attacked communities near the border region of northeastern Nigeria and abducted large numbers of civilians. Local officials say many of those taken were women and children. Mass kidnappings have become a major source of income for armed groups, who often demand large ransom payments from families or local communities. Human rights groups warn that abducted civilians are sometimes forced to work for the militants or used as bargaining tools during negotiations. The continued violence is having a devastating impact on everyday life. Thousands of families have been forced to flee their homes across northern Nigeria, seeking safety in displacement camps or neighboring towns. Farmers in many areas are now afraid to work in their fields due to the risk of attacks or kidnappings. This has raised concerns about food shortages and economic hardship in some parts of the country. Schools have also been affected. In regions where kidnappings are common, many schools remain closed as authorities try to protect students and teachers. Security experts say banditry in Nigeria has grown rapidly over the past decade. Unlike terrorist groups that operate based on ideology, bandits are largely motivated by profit. Their activities include cattle rustling, kidnapping for ransom, and illegal mining. Large forest regions such as the Rugu Forest and the Sambisa Forest have become strongholds for armed groups. These areas provide cover for militants and make it difficult for security forces to locate and dismantle their camps. Some analysts also warn that connections between bandit gangs and extremist groups may be increasing, which could further complicate Nigeria's security challenges. The Nigerian government says it remains committed to defeating armed groups. Military operations have intensified in several regions, with airstrikes targeting suspected militant camps and ground forces conducting patrols in high-risk areas. Nigeria is also working with neighboring countries through the Multinational Joint Task Force to combat extremist groups around the Lake Chad Basin. Officials say these joint operations have disrupted militant networks and led to the capture or killing of several insurgent leaders. However, security experts say the conflict remains difficult to resolve due to the size of the affected areas and the ability of armed groups to regroup after attacks. The situation in Nigeria has drawn attention from the international community. Organizations such as the United Nations have warned that the humanitarian crisis in northeastern Nigeria continues to affect millions of people. International partners, including the United States and the United Kingdom, have provided training and intelligence support to Nigerian security forces. Aid agencies are also working to provide food, shelter, and medical care to displaced families. For many Nigerians living in affected regions, the threat of violence remains a daily reality. While the government continues its military operations against armed groups, experts say long-term solutions will require addressing poverty, unemployment, and governance challenges that contribute to instability. For now, communities across northern Nigeria continue to hope for greater security and lasting peace. Reporting on the ongoing crisis in Nigeria, this has been our special report. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more coming news. Bye-bye.